Here with head men's basketball coach Blake Mellinger ahead of a big rivalry game on Wednesday, as we talked the day before here on Tuesday. You guys taking on Emory and Henry, the only other school in the South Atlantic Conference in the state of Virginia. Obviously, this is a very storied rivalry. That's going to be at 5:30 tomorrow. Before we get to that one, let's recap Saturday's win. First conference win of the season over Newberry, a Newberry team that, despite what the numbers say in their record, is probably better than what those numbers will indicate. They've played some very good teams this year. That's a big win for you guys to not fall behind 0-3 in conference play and get that first win. And now you got a chance to get back to 500 tomorrow. That game was really won specifically in turnovers for you guys. You had 17 turnovers forced and only gave up 9, one of the lowest of the season for you guys. I know we talked post game, but that had to feel really good to come out of a game like that, not turning the ball over too much and forcing a bunch on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the difference in the game. They shot a higher percentage than us, and I think we outscored them. Off of turnovers. I forget what the difference was, but we have some guys who are disruptive defensively, so we were able to turn them over, get out in transition, and I thought we did a really good job of taking care of the ball on the offensive end.
And that difference was 30 points off turnovers for you guys, just 10 for them. Part of that was because of those 17 turnovers you guys forced, 15 were steals. That's the second most in a game for a team in program history. 7 of those came from Zion Frustra. That was a career high number for him. He also had a career high 24 points, knocked down a couple threes, battling against that zone as well. Had those 2 obviously big dunks in transition that got everybody fired up. Felt like it was a really good game for him, not only just one of the best games of his, young career, but in the fact that it was a bounce back game from Saturday at Limestone where he struggled the week before.
Yeah, it really was. Like he's known as the scorer, and sometimes when he's not scoring the ball, like you know, um, he can kind of lose his mojo a little bit. And I thought he did a really good job of impacting the game in multiple ways on Saturday, not just from a scoring standpoint, although he did that. I thought he was really disruptive on the defensive end. And, he kind of gave us a lot of momentum there midway through the second half. He got some steals, got out in transition, allowed us to play a play in the open court where I feel like we're our best. So it was a huge turning point in the game during that stretch.
One of the most difficult things to do as a coach and a coaching staff is to game plan for your opponent. And there's that chess match that coaching staffs play with each other going into a game. And I think in that first half, Newberry kind of had you guys stumped for a little bit with that zone. It was hard to knock down some threes, but you guys made the adjustment in the second half that we talked about immediately following the game. You got the transition buckets, you got the defense, and then you got some in and out threes where you're able to work the ball in the paint and dish it out to the 3-point land. How much confidence does that give you moving forward this season to see your team take those words in the locker room at halftime, heed them, and make the adjustment, and it result in a win?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I think that's what you want as a coach. Like, it's easy for us to sit over there and identify it on the sidelines, but at the end of the day, like our guys are the ones who have to go out there and make the plays. And they've really been great all year. Like you know, they've bought in and done everything we've asked them to do, and that was a situation that was no different.
So this game against Emory and Henry tomorrow at 5:30. It's going to be one of the only conference doubleheader 5:30 games for you guys this season. They do it differently over there on the road, where the men play first at 5:30. The women will play after that. Whenever 20 minutes after the men's game ends. How much does that change your preparation for this game? The routines. One thing we've talked about this season is being the second game in these conference games. You guys have less of an on-court warm up, but you still make sure to get a shoot around in the morning. Does this help in the fact that you'll have the full 2 hours before to warm up, or how different is this going to be for your guys?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a huge difference. Like we've played non-conference games, up to this point where we've been the only game and there hasn't been a game before. So we'll kind of treat it the same way in terms of, I guess our timeline and our warm up and all those things. But 5:30, it's a little unique for a weeknight game. But it's very similar to a Saturday game played at 4 o'clock, and we're not in classes right now, so that's kind of how we'll treat it from a preparation standpoint.
And for Emory and Henry, they've got it a little differently than you guys do. You guys obviously last played Saturday, a couple days in between here on the Wednesday game. They played yesterday. They took on a common opponent with you guys, Southern Wesleyan, beat them by 20 at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte in a Court of Dreams game. And I was listening to the broadcast. They actually stayed that night for the Hornets and Heat game at 7 o'clock. So a real quick turnaround for them coming into this game. What kind of advantage does that pose for you guys?
Honestly, I don't know that it does. Not for this game anyway. Like we know they've had this game circled, ever since the schedule came out. Like it's just, it's that big of a game. Really for both teams, and like preparation is obviously important, but Coach Thompson, he's going to have his guys ready to go.
I wanted to ask you about the offensive rebounding battle for both teams going into this game. Emory Henry's the best offensive rebounding team in the league, one of the best teams in the country. 16 offensive rebounds per game. They're grabbing 42% of chances on the offensive glass. But on the other side, 34% offensive rebound percent given up to their opponents, which is one of the worst in the conference. So it seems like whoever can win the offensive glass has a chance to win this game. How important is that for you going into this game? How much are you stressing that to your team?
Yeah, I mean, a lot, and I think is a huge factor, particularly the defensive rebounding side for us. We're not a team that gets a ton of offensive rebounds, but I do think there are some opportunities tomorrow to get some. But I think the bigger key for us is keeping them off the offensive glass, because that's what kind of fuels our offense and allows us to get out in transition and get the game going at a pace that we want it to go. So I think that's the bigger factor. That's not to say we won't pursue offensive rebounds, but I think for us, our bigger emphasis is going to be keeping them off the offensive glass.
They have a couple of preseason all-conference selections in Gabe Brown and Jake Moynihan. Jalen Leftwich is another junior guard for them who's playing well this season. A team that scores the ball a decent amount but doesn't play a ton of defense as well. What do you like about this matchup, and what are some keys to a victory on Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean, defensive rebounding, like we just mentioned, I think we've got to keep the ball. We've got to keep them out of transition, make them score against our set defense in the half court. I think if we do that, we'll be in good shape. And then, offensively, again, like no different than any other game, we got to take care of the basketball. If we do that, I feel like we're going to get good shots and shoot a high percentage. We just we can't have a high number of turnovers.
Well, looking forward to it. Should be a good matchup. Rivalry games are always fun. If you're listening at home, you can catch that on WLSD 92.5 FM, AM 1220. That's at 5:30 tip. Pregame show will start at 5 o'clock. Blake, we'll see you then and talk to you after, and good luck.
Thank you.